there's the retargeting thing, and then there's the security thing, and then there's all these plugins that do this and that and the other thing. It's like Jesus, you just get nickeled and dimed to death. It's amazing.
You are literally hitting on every point that we need to talk about. Because this is the point of the podcast is embracing change. And it's kind of like listening to your journey as an entrepreneur and then how you've mitigated that change and how you're going to take that change and everything that you've learned historically into the future. So tell me a little bit about your power business tools from your own words. I know what I read, but let me hear it from
I'm
you.
just going to put up one of my little backgrounds thing here, just because you should use this whole video as a podcast in and of itself. Anyway,
Okay.
I always find that when they're kind of impromptu, we can have these amazing
I
conversations.
feel like it's better impromptu too. And
Yeah.
honestly, I'm trying to figure out which way I want to go with that so we don't have to do two meetings. But I know it is preferable to do one meeting like a prep meeting and then do one later. But I have a great editor, so we could just go for it. Okay. So
So
yeah.
what is the theme of your podcast? You start there. It's and let us tell. I could post it on my website too. We have both people getting benefit from it. So anyway.
That's it. That's it. So the theme is called Embracing Change for Navigating AI for Future-Proof Wealth. And so when you're navigating AI, I mean, Goldman Sachs says there's going to be 300 million displaced jobs. And I think people like us have lived through that actually happening already. And our parents have lived through, the industrial change and then, so everything that happened, I'm 50 and stuff that happened 50 years ago, we're no longer doing anymore, And
I love these predictions that say 300 million jobs are going to change. Like, they're making this stuff up. And the PR people don't seem to really care. I mean, sure, it's going to change everything. A lot of people will be displaced. But then I started in the computer industry before when the computers just started. So those jobs didn't exist at all.
at all.
There's a whole bunch of AI stuff that has never existed before. Now people are doing it. And like anything, some of it's just not ready for prime time. People are using AI to do some cool things, but at the end of the day, like in my case, I work with people who are looking for investment capital for their company. Now,
Oh,
if the AI is going to write your business plan and the AI is going to run your company, then the investor should write the check to the AI, not you. And at the end of the day, what the investors are pretty much all saying is we're betting on the jockey, not the horse. We
yeah.
want to know what a nice person like you is doing in a business like this. Enough to say you got the credibility, you got an aha, something that's all going wrong in your life, like everybody you're selling to. Like I share your pain. And then one day I'm solving this thing, and then boom, I had an aha moment, and now I have this thing that you too can use. And so that's the start. But then what keeps the person on the horse? What keeps the jockey when you fall off the horse? Because we've all fallen off the horse to get back on the horse. And that's what investors want to know is why you? Like, how are you going to, because I've met people, you've known people who go, I got this great idea. We can do this thing. And you look at them and think, yeah, that's a great idea, but you ain't the person to do it. It's
Oh,
like,
wow. That's so interesting that you would say that. So another one of my companies is I run a fund. And so in running that fund, I have an investor relations team. So I know exactly what you're saying. But let's go back to your business power tools.
yeah.
What exactly did you do 10 years ago?
Well, this goes back about 35 years ago, actually.
I think it's like every 8 to 10 years, things change, right? So
Yeah,
10 years ago, okay, it's 24. 10 years ago would have put you in
14.
2015.
In that general time frame, what happened then was I took all these software programs that I had that were selling in stores, and we put them all into an online dashboard. Everything needed to be online. And the cool thing about putting them all together in an online dashboard is they all could share the same information. Like you put your company name in, that's going to appear in all the products right away. So you have this, back in the day, we called it mail merge. But it's kind of like that. The document pops up. It's got a variable. Whatever the variable said here, boom, fill the company name, your name, address, all that common information. Why should you have to type that over and over again? And so in our case, we've got a business plan. And so the business plan is going to have your company name in it throughout. It's going to have the entrepreneur's name in it throughout. It's going to have the industry that you're in throughout it. So why should you have to type those things 100 times or mark 1,000 times?
Yep,
And so why would you? So just
let me just put a pin in it. You had an autocorrect or the filler thing that we currently see every day, everywhere.
yeah,
You had already had that in 2014. That was
oh, yeah.
that was the product that you were selling, how to automatically fill in all of that information.
That was just a feature of the product. That really wasn't the product. The
Okay.
product itself was like, let's say you need to write a business plan. Let me just back up to how I got here from there. So I'm talking to a friend of mine in Silicon Valley. Had a software engineering firm. Apple wanted to buy his software and
Okay.
use it I think for the Mac actually.
Okay.
And so this was back in like 80, 89 or 90, something like that back then. And so he needed a business plan because at the time, the Small Business Administration had done a study of 26,000 businesses that failed and found that 67% of them, or 65%, something like that, two-thirds anyway, had no business plan.
Ah, yeah.
So if you're going to loan somebody money and two-thirds of them fail because they have no plan, I think you'd want to have them make sure they have a plan, at least take that risk off the table, right?
Okay.
So Apple wanted to see his business plan because they wanted to see how he was going to continue his business to develop the product, to support them using the product and all that stuff. You don't want to just one off and then, oh, sorry, all the programmers who wrote it are gone. No, no.
Right. That's right.
So they wanted to see his plan, and I'd never written a business plan before. He didn't have a plan, but I've been writing marketing materials. And so from my experience giving an education at the University of California in Santa Barbara, I took a couple of years of electrical engineering, and the rest of it I graduated with a degree in business economics. That got me a job at Texas Instruments selling electronic components.
Wow.
And so,
That's a really good point right there. Texas Instruments, because one of the things that we want to talk about, this is perfect. What you're saying, this is perfect because we know, and you're talking about business plans. So in that business plan, and when you went to Texas Instruments, I mean, you're thinking this is a company that's got their finger on the pulse. Does
yeah.
Texas Instruments still exist today?
Oh, yeah. They are, but I don't think they're not really in the consumer electronics space. So you don't really hear about them. Every
Right.
once in a while, you go to the movie theater and you'll see like Texas Instruments sound, is a whole thing, or video or something like that. So they're alive and well. I think if they were smart, they'd forget the commercial world. Let's just go military because they had,
They are. I think they are government contractors.
pretty
Probably.
much. I think so. I haven't really talked to anybody
Yeah.
at TI in years, but I
Yeah.
remember one of the key things that Pat Haggerty, who's the founder, had everybody do was what he called an OST, your objectives, strategies, and tactics. And that's been, bandied about in different ways and been, morphed and changed and stuff. But that was always one of those interesting things. Like, what are you trying to do? What's the strategy to get there? What are the things you're going to do to make that happen? Anyway, so TI, and from Texas Instruments, I got a job as the electronics buyer for the Sharper Image catalog. So if you
Excellent.
remember, that catalog was kind of originally a Guy Gadget catalog, and all
Is
that
it
stuff.
still on all the airplanes? Because I think that's
I know, right?
that's
No.
usually where it
Well,
usually is. Yeah.
that was what they did on the airplane. I'll get to that in a second because I ran, let me get to that in a second. So Sharper electronics buyer. So I bought all the electronics stuff for the Sharper Image catalog. I was 27 years old, and I remember getting freaked out about placing a purchase order for like 270,000. It was like 10 times my salary, and thinking, oh God. But
Wow.
anyway, they liked how I explained the technology to the art people to write the copy. So once you just become a copywriter, you could be much better at that. So I thought, okay, that'll be fun. So I was a copywriter for the catalog. And along the way, then I discovered a word processor in Silicon Valley. I thought I could sell these things all day long
Mhm.
and make a lot more money. And so I sold word processors to enterprises in Silicon Valley. So take those three experiences, TI, Sharper Image, and word processors to enterprises. So I knew how an enterprise like Apple would fundamentally work, and understood the technological issues that they were looking at because of the electronics, and then something about direct response marketing, which is a catalog. So I studied business plans, but I also put together all the information, kind of like a catalog of answers that Apple would be looking for. Everything about my friend's company that they needed to know. Long story short, we got the deal. And so that was a big deal for him because it's a big deal. We couldn't afford to lose it. So that
Apple, I
happened.
mean,
So we
that's
got a big deal. Yeah.
yeah.
And then so over the next year or so, I'm helping people with business plans. So I'm thinking, I could help people with business plans, because I was helping with marketing. Here's a new shtick. And a lot of them, they didn't make sense to investors. There's always something that's like, you got a good deal, but not quite that.
Oh,
But oh, and another thing I should say, going back to, if I was to say, what's a nice guy like me doing in a business like this at all, is way back as a kid, I remember reading Popular Science and Popular Mechanics magazines and
yes,
reading about these inventions and here's how you solve this problem. Here's a new invention that does that. Here's the new thing. And
yes.
the one that really stuck in my mind was the 200 mile per gallon carburetor.
Hmm.
Go figure. Was it real? What happened to it? I don't know, conspiracy theory or otherwise.
Hmm.
Either way, how come we're not getting 200 miles per gallon today? So that's, one of those things. Anyway, I won't get into that. But the point is, so here are these people, some great ideas. Now, they weren't necessarily 200 mile per gallon carburetors, but they were medical devices. They were things that just made life easier, ideally make the world a better place, I'd like to think. So I was helping these guys, and about a year into this, I'm thinking, I'm helping these guys, but there's a lot of other people who just aren't succeeding using what they were using for business plans. But I thought, what if I took all the content I developed for these people and put together the ultimate business plan for myself in case I come up with an idea. I wanted the ultimate business plan with all the stuff, get it right the first time. And like the aha moment was, hey, that's the product. I could help a lot more people with a template that they could do it themselves because you're going to write your own business plan. You know your business better than I do.
You do,
But
yeah.
so the business plan is basically is the draft text of your entire business plan. That's really the secret sauce. So when you ask about the mail merge part, the mail merge part just helped fill in some of the places there. But the text, the content is what nobody else really has. You look at the SCORE business plan, you look at the SBA business plan, they're fundamentally blank. I mean, my table of contents has got more content in them than they do.
Right.
But they'll say, describe your management team here, list their backgrounds, list their histories, list their accomplishments. As an ancient history professor pointed out, and then you get to see a map of Antarctica, just nothing, blank white page. So, but because people don't know what to do, they don't know how to do it, and they
Yes.
need to know what to say and how to say it.
Most
And
people just are trying to make their money. They have that entrepreneurial spirit, and that's all they want is they want to make money, and they have a great idea, like you just said with the 200 miles per gallon carburetor or whatever. And now that's it. They don't know how they're going to do it. They don't know how to sell it to Apple, like you figured out how to keep Apple buying next year. Because because they bought 1 year doesn't mean they're going to buy the next year when the contract.
you want to sell them that, there's all that stuff. But I mean, what you're alluding to also is imagine seeing a big vacant lot and thinking, I'm going to build a house, and you just bring a bunch of lumber over and I'm just start cutting wood and building the house. Seriously, is that what you do? I mean, that's what but that's how people start businesses. They just start doing it. Now to a degree, I mean, I know more than half my customers write their business plan after they start because they realize, oh my God, I'm creating a monster. I better build a foundation and put some plumbing and wiring in place before I go too far down the road.
Of course.
Especially if you need money from investors. I advocate if you could build your business as much as possible without outside investment, go for it. There are wildly successful companies who've been what's called bootstrapped. They built, you build it on the revenue you make from selling your product. And I did that for a long time myself. However,
what it's
some
called?
businesses,
Once they get to $1 billion, you know what they're called. What are they called?
You're called a unicorn at that point.
That's it.
But how many unicorns are bootstrapped? And so, but you got a great idea. And the thing is, you've got it going, but now you want to bring in investors, and you've got investors, they may have a lot of money, but they got plenty of time. They don't need to buy your deal. They got plenty of other deals to look at. They don't need your deal.
That's right.
So, and then they got other people are talking to that you're competing with, really. So you really need to have a rockin' complete, thorough plan to show them.
Yeah.
Because if you want somebody to write you a check for $1 million, they're going to ask you a lot of questions.
Oh yeah.
They're, first of all, they're more worried about losing the money than they are about all the money they're going to make on your business. So you've got to convince them that you have your act together. You've considered the risks. You've got risks, you got competitors, you got problems, blah, 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 all that stuff. But you have it documented and you can explain this whole business to them in a logical sequence. And that's really what it came down to. And so, and with a financial model, it makes sense. I mean, if I had a dime for or a buck for everybody who said it's a $10 billion market, if we got 1% of it, we'd be a $100 million company. Write me a check. And it's just the investors just think, oh, Jesus. Two problems with that is a $10 billion market, you don't know who all's in it. Two, if you say all I need is 1%, that just screams you're an idiot. I'm being polite.
Oh.
It just screams you're lazy. You don't really know. You're like you're a dreamer. You're out to lunch. All kinds of things. Basically, tells investors to run away. That will run from that. So the other one is how do they put it? Oh, I was on a panel of judges for a business plan competition at the University of Texas,
Wonderful.
and me, three venture capitalists, and every single team came out and said, "We're going to do $1 million in our first year." Somewhere in their pitch, and we're going to do $1 million in our first year. And I thought to myself, the VCs, I said, "Guys, is it just me, or does everybody do $1 million in their first year?" They start laughing. Like, everybody says that. I'm thinking, it's so horrible. But I could
Well,
show.
let me ask you a question. You have spent a lifetime, from what I'm hearing, helping people create business plans and creating business plans. Now, out of all of those business plans, even with your expertise, what is the very thing that makes one company become a unicorn and another company become a flop? If you could say there's one thing that changes everything, like we were just talking about Texas Instruments,
Yeah.
and just in your entire conversation, I'm hearing constant renewal of that idea. Like the idea is renewing. The idea has to renew. Even your idea, you kept having to do it differently. You always had to do it differently. You've got the same idea, but you still have to do it differently. So what is the one thing, and I wonder if you can notice what it is, but what is that one thing that is different from like 1% of these companies ever succeed?
Well, the thing that comes to mind immediately is, well, in real estate, it's location, location, location.
Not
But
all the time.
well,
Yeah,
okay,
just
that's the
real
general
estate.
principle is
Yeah,
location, location,
yeah,
location. You hear that
yeah.
enough. Okay. And just like the answer to your question is a general principle, but it's not going to apply everywhere. Anyway, then when investors are investing in businesses, they invest in management, management, management.
Mm.
And every business success book that I've ever read, and I've read a lot of them, there's one consistent theme. That's persistence, persistence, persistence. So it's putting one foot in front of the other. When it's ugly, you put one foot in front of the other. When you're going great, you keep putting one foot in front of the other. You don't stop. You don't look down. You might look. And the other thing I would say too, that would be, I think that's my answer to your question. But as I think of it, one other thing I want to say too that I want to dispel immediately is everybody says you only learn from your mistakes. You don't learn from your successes. You just learn from your mistakes. And I want to say nothing could be further from the truth. And I'll go on record arguing that one to the death. Because if you finally succeed, that's the last mistake you made. And what you're saying is you're not going to learn from that last mistake that you no longer made and you succeeded. So I would say when you finally succeed, look at Edison. It took him 1,000 times to get the light bulb right. And he would say, I learned 1,000 ways it didn't work. That's nice. And he learned it didn't work. But then when he finally got it right, do you think you're like, okay, we got it right. It's working. What did we stop doing? What did we start doing? What did we add? What did we subtract? Who was there? Who's not there? I mean, there's a whole bunch of things about that success. I would study the hell out of that success and review the past mistakes and see what what all went into this success, because God damn, we finally got it right, you
Finally
know.
got it right. Well, I would agree with you for sure. And let me tell you a little saying that I just learned today, and it's going to be paraphrased and probably a little off. But Winston Churchill said that success is the journey of staying enthusiastic from one failure to the next.
Right. Yep.
So I was like, oh, that's so good. That is so good
That's
because
persistence. That's persistence for
that is
you. You have to
persistent.
maintain the optimism when everything's going wrong.
That's
And
right.
I said to some people, sometimes you just got to look reality in the eye and deny it. You know, maybe a little far-fetched. Sometimes you really got to pivot. You got to fold it up and, know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
Hey.
But even then, that's of course, that's just playing cards. But nevertheless, there is that. And what else was I going to say about that? Well, anyway,
Well,
oh,
what I've heard you say so far, what I've heard you say so far is that it's persistence. It is management. Management and persistence are the main two ingredients that allows a company like Texas Instruments to still be around, even though they're not selling Casios anymore.
yeah, you don't see them advertising on TV. They've got a whole different marketplace. So I don't know how they're doing what they're doing, but I
Right.
just remember there was a certain real quality in the founding of the business and what they were about and some fundamental things they did. What I learned there was what you do is you got a product, and first thing you look at is how much money do I want to make on this product? You don't go, well, I'm going to sell it for this price. It's going to cost this and cost that. Maybe we'll end up with something. No, what do we want to end up with? And then how do we drive the cost down so we can drive the price down? We're still making money, but how do we drive the cost of making this thing down and the cost of selling it down? But you start with the profit first.
Right.
So yeah, it belongs with pay yourself first. There's that whole adage that's in there. So that's something to consider.
hmm hmm Okay, so pay yourself first, have the right management team, and be persistent. But that does not stop the growth of technology and what's happened where, okay, we had one business plan to provide these items to Apple, and they got the contract, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what were they providing to Apple if it's, I mean, if there was an NDA, I think it's over by now, right? Because they don't, I'm sure those products don't exist anymore. Are they still? Yeah. So they got the contract to provide something to Apple. And how long did that contract last?
I really don't know. I didn't really follow up and stay involved in that. It was my friend's company. He was off to the races. I was off to the races in a different direction. I could probably call him up tomorrow. I probably should call him up and ask him that. 'Cause nobody's really asked that. I've kind of become curious myself. Like, whatever happened to that deal? How did that guy? I think he made a lot of money with it. I hope
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good.
Apple bought his deal. That's the point.
That's it. Oh, so Apple did buy it.
Oh yeah, they went ahead with the deal. The part of it, which is another unusual application of a business plan. I'll ask somebody if you have a business plan, and oftentimes it's, oh, I'm not a startup. What's that got to do with anything? But that's what people think. It's just for startups. But you could have a startup, but it's also how do you bootstrap this startup, and how do you bring on? And then I said, well, okay, you bring on somebody new. What are they supposed to do? I'm going to come to work for you. I was like, I don't know what you've been doing. I don't know what's working for you. I don't know who your customers are. I don't know what you're doing. I don't even know you. I don't know your background. But if you give me the business plan with all that outlined in it or all that list written in it, which why not? It's a catalog of answers that wants to know about your business. Now, of course, it's proprietary. You don't just give it to everybody. But if I'm going to come work for you, of course, I'd probably sign an NDA. I'm going to be loyal to you because you're paying me. I'm on the team. Blah blah blah. So give me the plan, and you might say, okay, Burke, your job is this, but here's the plan, and fix this area. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to fix this area, but I need to fix that area in the context of everything else in the business. Otherwise, I'm going to haul off and change your logo to something stupid.
Right.
But that's not what my company's about. But so it provides context for the people. It's the fastest way to onboard somebody, I can imagine. But then again, if you want money. And if you're raising money, you don't just raise money as a startup. You many times you will, most of the times you do, but obviously it's for dazzling the investors or really helping you. Because I've seen these guys get up in front of investors and they really haven't written the business plan. Maybe the consultant who's sitting in the audience wrote the business plan. and they're up there talking about it, and they can't answer the questions. You watch them on the Shark Tank. They ask an obvious question. You see that deer in headlight look, which is not pretty.
No.
And so, and I've seen them and not be able to answer obvious questions. Like one question, I was at a meeting where it was literally everybody around the table. I wasn't at that table at the time because I didn't have that kind of money, but everybody at that table could write a check for any entrepreneur who's pitching their entire deal. Like, bam, you're funded. So here's this guy up there pitching his thing. And one of the questions was, what happens if you get hit by a bus? Now,
Oh, right. Does he have key man insurance?
what I got was a deer in headlights. Never thought about that.
Never thought about that. Doesn't have Aflac.
So you
Doesn't have
said E-man person insurance, which would either pay you your money back or pay a recruiter to fill the spot. And the other answer is, I got a team.
Yeah.
So I've thought, and the fact is, you thought about it. You are aware of that.
You
If you're not
know
aware, if I get hit by a
exactly.
bus, here's my plan.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
you want to reveal those risks. You want to be and you can just see the investors just going, putting it back in their pocket.
So your guided software driven templates make building your business easier. Okay. So we know that
This
you
plan is a daunting project, no doubt. But we have it already spelled out for you.
right.
You just go through each section. I could give you a video demo, but yeah. You just
What do you think though? You're helping people by put together business plans, but there's still a deer in headlights. You're still going to look like a deer in headlights when you're talking to investors.
I won't.
And let me tell you why. Because the one thing that people are not thinking about, and I want to know if you've addressed this, is technology. This is what I've been getting to in the first place.
Yeah.
How are they going to mitigate while they're making earned income, and they're doing really well? Are they does that business plan include some other type of way? There's two things that people have to do. They have to grow, right? They have to move with the industry. They don't want to be like Blockbuster where they didn't get online fast enough and then Netflix did, and then they had bad management. If you watch that documentary, they had bad management. Like you said, they weren't persistent with the online, and Netflix came in there and tore them apart. So how do you mitigate that part? Is that in the business plan? Because technology is moving at
Oh, it has to be in the business plan. The business plan was built using the technology. It was built using Word and Excel and PowerPoint, back in the day. Now it's all online, so it's much easier than that. But the idea is there's a section on R&D talking about technology. There's a section on operations that talks about technology, and there's a section in risk. I have a whole risk section about government risks. There's technological risks. There are, forget the other one. There's like environmental risks.
That's
You want to reveal the risks, because it's like saying, like, there's competitive section. There's direct competitors, indirect competitors, competitive advantages. We even ask, if you win, who loses? Because
that sounds more in depth than just a typical SWOT analysis.
hell yes, it is. But it's every single thing. This was all what's evolved in this thing is I'll go to these meetings like, oh, that's a great question. I asked the part, and I go, what happens if you get hit by a bus? I mean, that's addressed in the business plan, because when I was at this meeting, I think, oh, dang, I didn't think about that. Put that in the plan. So the thing can evolve that way. And that's the beauty of it, is having it online, is your plan evolves as your business grows. Because as you start the business, you look for money, you bring on people. You may do a deal with a big company. Now you got that plan to show the big company. The guy with Apple did. I didn't see that one coming. Where it started, of course. Then maybe you have an idea for something. You got a bright shiny object, but your focus is here. You could license this bright shiny object to somebody. You write a business plan around the bright shiny object. You show it to a licensing company. Show them, like, the world wants this thing. We're not going to do it, but you can license it from us. Here's the deal, and boom, that happens. Certainly when you're raising capital again, you might be raising capital all the way through your business. And so you've got this plan that's already evolving. You've got a cap table that's already started. you've got a whole financial model that's already got a 5-year projection in
That's
detail that can show investors.
that's
And I
wonderful.
asked that thing about the $1 billion to 1%. Get rid of that.
So how did you help other people doing business plans? And what I'm hearing for 35 years, you've evolved with the way your thought process of your business and how and the things that you're doing, how you're serving the same community for 35 years, but it's evolved. First it was Word and Excel, and now it's online, and now like what, so you have evolved, and that was out of necessity. Do you feel like you've moved online fast enough? Did you do this? How could anyone get ahead of the curve?
I think it might be a mistake to think you need to be ahead of that curve. I think some of it is like right now, AI, I've got a list of last count 47 different AIs. There's a whole bunch of different AIs that do all kinds of different stuff. And so I like to use off the shelf parts that are proven to work. Investors,
Mm,
in fact, or get skittish if you think this is the latest cutting edge thing we're going to use. Well, as you know, about anything latest cutting edge, it's got problems. It's not ready for prime time. It's got issues.
yes,
Do you
sir.
want to build your business on a foundation of something that isn't really fully, not fully vetted, but fully debugged, fully working? And that takes a little time for it to sort out. And like, there's companies out there that make AI-driven business plans right now. Click here, we'll write your whole business plan for you. I've
Mm,
seen them, and several people I know have seen them. The investors, and they look at it and well, this is all just regurgitated crap. Because if you told it to do it again, ask the AI a question, the same question a second time, it gives you a different answer. Now,
uh,
if you asked your man where he was, and he says, I was at the store, and then you ask him again where he were, he goes, I was playing baseball. You ask him again where you know what I'm saying? If he's giving you different answers, that's not going to go over well. So how do you trust this thing? And then here's the problem: if the AI writes the plan, hell, write a check to the AI because it's going to run the business better than you do. So
Dirk, you have to be very careful. I'm putting a pin in you right now because everyone says that when new technology comes out. You can't tell me anything that's ever happened and everyone like the internet. Oh, who's going to do that? No one's going to put their stuff online. Like who's going to hold their files online and not have their files in a file cabinet? So now all the file cabinet companies are out of business, right?
there's
And
still file cabinets sold at Office Depot, but yeah,
it,
no, but I'm embracing AI. I use AI. It's great, but the
yeah, I
thing
mean, but
about
it's
people,
going to get better. So you can't,
yes,
and believe it or not, it's going to get better. We can't ignore it. We can't and it's not going to take 5 years to get better either. So far since ChatGPT launched,
yeah,
it was November, since it came out, it was November 22.
I
At
know.
January 23, I learned about it. We had all night, all day, 24-hour rooms learning about ChatGPT, um, and all the applications and how it could do what you just said and write a business plan or write a book or do this or do that. And then we all found out over the last year, yeah, no, if you do that, it's not that good, like you just said. But it's going to get better because what I've noticed in the last week is that Facebook, I hadn't been on Facebook in ages,
Yeah.
really. And I went on Facebook and I'm noticing that they've got all these Meta has integrated AI into it. So now instead of trying to go back to ChatGPT, I had wrote something for a story and then I tried to paste it and it made it so that I couldn't paste it, so that I had to use the Meta AI. So all of these things, so those companies are definitely integrating these things. These things are happening. It's all happening very fast. But we've been here before as business owners. As business owners, you've been here before. You've seen things change. It might have taken 5 years to change, but now it's taking months to change. So how do we keep feeding our families and not go out of business?
Well, they say it's not the AI that's going to do it to you. It's going to be somebody else using AI that's gonna beat you. But they could be using the wrong AI. But nevertheless, I'm not worried about that. But what I guess what I first thing I would want to say about AI is, if you're going to use AI to write an email, please, for God's sake, proofread it. Because people don't proofread them.
No.
And even like the business plans, we've looked at, and I've had several friends are CFOs and financial guys. They listen to the entrepreneur, they read the business plan. They go, this is generic. Investors, investors want details. And then when they also maybe look you in the eye and ask you questions like, how are you going to do this? And you're thinking, I don't know, I think it's in the business plan. That's not very good. You need to be able to answer the questions. The business plan, in a way, is documenting your knowledge, your understanding of it, how you're going to do it. It's like a movie script. You got to have it all scripted out from start to finish before you shoot one frame of the film. How do you do that? So that's important to have.
So
There's so many different other metaphors you could use like that.
right.
But
You're
here,
so right. You're so right. And I'm not disputing anything about the business plan. You are on it and you've got all the sections about risk. I'm still going to ask the question again, and I'm going to tell you what I'm trying to get to. The question is, how do we mitigate? Okay, I'm going to do business plans. And you mentioned a little tiny piece of something that I heard you say. You said, well, we were sitting at a round table with investors, and well, I didn't have money to put in like they did, but you've been at this for 35 years. And I'm pretty sure, just like all of those businesses that you mentioned, you said, oh, yeah, I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to make $5 billion by this time. I'm going to be, So, and in 35 years, you've had great years and you've had some down years. Wouldn't you agree? Now, in those great years, did you take all the great money that you made and bought some income with it? And if not, don't you think that should be part of the business plan too?
well, you talk about alternate sources of income, like you invest in some real estate, invest in some stocks, and do some. So I do all that.
Well, those businesses actually, I think it should be part of the business plan to buy assets. Because if you look at the greats, the unicorn companies, I don't know if it's in their business plan. I think it is to buy assets. And they buy up other companies. They gobble up all the other competitors. So they gobble up the competitors, they buy income with all of their competitors,
Yeah.
and they put them out of business. And then they also invest in real estate. Walmart is a real estate company. Then you've got Amazon, all real estate all across country. You've got McDonald's, real estate
Also,
company.
the biggest real estate holder in the world. Yeah.
Real estate company. So yeah, and so if they go out of business, it's so funny because with Sam Walton, perfect example. I saw that one of the books I read, Sam Walton on his first venture leased a warehouse, his first five and dime store. He
Yeah.
leased it for 5 years and made the first Walmart, and it was a massive success. And because of that, what happened is it was a success. So the guy did not renew his lease. And he didn't renew his lease, and he had to oh God, what am I going to do now? He used his life insurance policy to pay his employees. And then from that mistake that we talked about, all these mistakes
Own the
happened,
building. Yeah.
he bought a building. And so, buying income is like the thing that I think most of us, it's the only thing that's going to save us from all of these ups and downs that are inevitable. It's never not going to happen. It's definitely going to happen every 8 to 10 years. Whatever you thought you were going to do when you wrote that plan 5 years ago, and you cannot see 5 years from now. And these days, they say knowledge is doubling every couple of months. So whatever business plan they write with business power tools is probably going to not be applicable in a year.
That's the point of strategic planning every year. But if you already had the business plan in place, you don't have to start your strategic plan from scratch. And
Mm,
if you're going to pivot, you don't change everything.
Okay.
Like one of the I'm looking at, we started out like for startups and like that. The startup marketplace has been jammed with people oh, you don't need a stinking business plan, blah, 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 all that stuff, which is, could be farther from the truth. But nevertheless, why argue with that? However, at the other end of the spectrum, there's a whole bunch of baby boomers with businesses who want to sell them. And I'm talking to business brokers now because the business brokers say, unfortunately, most of these businesses are A, unsellable, or B, train wrecks behind the scenes, or
Oh,
both.
oh,
So, and what makes them a train wreck behind the scenes? No plan, no policies, no procedures, no infrastructure. They're just like doing this business and they want to sell this thing. And the process of selling your business actually takes about 3 years. You don't just call somebody up and list it this weekend.
hmm.
So you want to start thinking about what does this business need to look like to sell this thing and spiff this thing up for a buyer.
Right.
Now, if I was a broker, and if it's like a real estate broker, and you're selling your house, or if you're selling my house, what would you tell me? Burke, clean it up, paint it, water the plants. You know what I mean? It's like, now you're not going to come over and do it. You're going to tell me to do it. So the
Right.
brokers are telling their clients, write a plan, put policies and procedure. We have policies and procedure. We have all that stuff in place. So there's a whole spectrum. That's what the business plan evolved into, like a dozen products,
One.
policy, legal agreements, job descriptions,
One.
sequence of documents for firing somebody. That's another thing, by the way, is letting people
Funny.
go. You
No,
got to be able to let
I
people go.
just literally hired an operations manager, and I just used ChatGPT to do that. So I used one of those companies, online companies, to create policies and procedures about 2 years ago. But then I took all of those policies and procedures and then dumped it into ChatGPT, told ChatGPT to write a policies and procedures plan for my new operations manager. 50 pages of that bad boy. It
Yep.
looks real good. It looks real good. So, I mean,
Where
this
did he
is
get that
what
information
you
from?
got to do.
Where did it get the information from? Are you getting stuff from the different states? Like our safety plan grabs a lot of stuff out of OSHA, or or has a link to OSHA, so you can click here. Here's how to do machine guarding, because the OSHA inspector is going to come to your shop. They're not looking for a courtesy visit and a cup of coffee. They're going to wander around. It's like a cop pulling you over, not pulling you over to check out your paint job. They're pulling you over because there's something you did wrong. They're going to give you a ticket.
Right.
And the OSHA is there well, they're looking for some infractions, and you don't need that, so you can protect yourself. So anyway, that's a whole other side. But yeah, there's the policies, the procedures. It's prepping your business. It's really staging. It's like staging a house for sale. You're staging your business for sale, and you want to have this prospectus, the business plan, that you can show a new potential owner, like, this is how this business works. This is the potential it's got. This is the projections of what this thing can do in the future. This is why it's worth what I want for it. So if you want to get a higher valuation for this business, you need an explanation for that buyer, just like you're going to pitch it to an investor.
There's
So,
nothing like that experience.
so the business plan is good from startup to selling. Now, if you're going to give your business to your kids, there's a succession plan involved. Do the kids have the owner's manual to the business? No. They're working for daddy's company, doing whatever they're doing, but they really don't understand how daddy saw it. They didn't understand how Walton saw the business
That's
and understood why you need to own the freaking
all
building.
the
Because the kids are,
silver.
it's dead. It's cheaper just to lease this warehouse. He goes, no, buy it. I mean, just because, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you don't know why. And there's a reason, because he had a real experience.
That story, I mean, probably did at some point, but yeah, and I've seen there's a restaurant in San Francisco that was magnificent, went out of business because the landlord jacked the rent, and the guy, I can't do this, so he had to close the restaurant. And I think, oh, yeah, so you don't. I'm sold on owning your own building.
That's right.
It's just
That's
really
right.
it's really a
So we
thing.
covered a couple of things about buying income and mitigating change, because that's all wrapped together. Like, and something that I'm hearing, and I just want you to recognize it. And I want to know, and it's gonna hit you right in the stomach, and I hope that's okay. Can I hit you in the stomach a little bit?
For it.
Okay. So what I would like to know is, I just told you everything you told me about your plan, and I just told you I used ChatGPT to do what you did. Now, your human experience is in your product. That human experience the ChatGPT is all the human experiences. But if you don't know how to prompt it right, you're going to be off. Like I didn't know to talk about the OSHA in there. So now,
See,
right,
yeah,
right.
you
So I
didn't
didn't
do
ask
either, did
it. Yeah, I didn't ask it to talk about OSHA requirements inside the system. But what I did do at the end is I asked it to tell me, is there anything I forgot? Now today, it's not that good. But in a year, the company, I guarantee you, okay, in a year, everything you just told me about how excellent your product is probably going to be irrelevant. So
except
what have
I'm building AI into my whole business as well.
aha, okay, that was my next question.
I've,
What are
I've
you
got the
doing?
I've got the content to start with. The argument I would make against using ChatGPT by itself in a blank sheet of paper, A, you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know what to ask it.
That's right.
So and you're going to burn a lot of time with the prompt getting it backwards and forwards. And even if you ran the same prompt again, you're going to get a different answer,
Right.
which is kind of freakish to me. So there's that. So yeah, so anyway, yeah, so you don't know, and the time you're going to spend doing this prompt engineering over and over and over again, you could buy my product, like the safety plan and the employee mandate together go for $47 a month.
Nice.
So I look at, especially for the business plan looking to raise capital, there's what I call a mean time to getting the money, mean time to investment. Typically that's between 4 and 6 months to get to the investor. Now, if you want to spend the first 4 to 6 months figuring out how to write your business plan and not even knowing if it makes sense or if it's complete, and then start the process talking to investors, you've already wasted all this time. You could be using and be down the road already, way down the road, if you just invest a little bit of money versus trying to do it all by yourself using an AI, which
You're right.
it's my defense against AI. It's a start of it, but it's just a practical reality. I can build the other, but what AI can do, and I do this kind of cool. It's like take this section of the business plan and write it in the writing style of Hemingway.
Yeah.
ChatGPT won't do that, by the way. I think there's another one that does do it, but that's the thing. They're different. So everybody thinks ChatGPT is all there is. There is not.
No, I know.
There's a bunch of others that are out there. Now you could tell it.
But
I
I think
wrote
that they're all the underlying is still ChatGPT. The underlying is
a
that
large language model is what it's doing. It's not artificial intelligence. A large language model is what it is. So people think it's intelligence. There's no intelligence in it at all. So there's that. But anyway, the point I'm saying is, so I wanted the thing to write now. It does know other things. So it does know, like I said, so write this section in the second, like wait, Hemingway would write it. And so it wrote it, like it took whatever I wrote, and that was clever, and that was really kind of cool. Then I said, okay, take the same passage and write it like Guy Kawasaki would write it. And it came back with, this is going to explosive. All this kind. I thought, wow, that was interesting. So you could, and so one of the things I'm going to bake into my system is like, here's this business plan, or in fact, it would be one of the global things when you first log in. So what industry are you in? What's the scope of your business that you're in? What language grade level do you want this to be written at? Sixth grade, eighth grade, PhD level? Some people want the full-blown PhD. This has
and
got to
and
sound.
and I just finished my book, Buy Income. It's the Buy Income Strategies for Future-Proof Wealth, Navigating Change I always forget it because I changed it. So the podcast is one thing and then the book is another thing. But with the Buy Income, the whole thing is about how what you just said. It's this whole conversation about buying income. You have to buy income in order for you to even stay ahead of that curve, because while you're doing that, while you're trying to find investment capital, or let's say you're doing really well, right now, staying ahead of the curve, that's all earned income. And then you've got to look at how everyone else did it as well and buy diversified income.
Yeah. I mean, you're asking earlier about, should it be baked into your plan that you buy real estate? Should you do this? Should you do that? That would occur when you're doing your strategic planning, whenever you do that during the year. So you're looking at your plan and you're saying, like I said, about pivoting, like the new thing will be we should go after business brokers because they've got clients who want to sell their business. The brokers that get this business power tools, use all of it. And now we have something we can sell your business better with, which it does. And so in that strategic planning session, I say, can we buy the building? Should we buy the building? And do the on that? Because you're paying a lease on the building. What's the building worth? Could you sell the building with the business? Could you sell the business and lease the building to the people who buy the building? What's that look?
Yep.
So all of that can be factored in. But that buy the building conversation doesn't affect the we need to double down on IT over here and we need to put in some cybersecurity that we don't have. So there's a budget
buy the cybersecurity company.
Why do you might not need to buy the cybersecurity company? I mean, that's a thought. You could, but if you're in the business, if you're gonna buy the cybersecurity company, you better be you want to offer cybersecurity to your clients. If it makes sense to buy that company and you've got a bunch of customers that could use it, that makes some sense. But if you're not really in the cybersecurity business, it's almost like a building contractor going out and saying and buying a car dealership because they want some trucks. You know what I mean? They buy the trucks.
You could invest in shares of that company. Because one of the things that I've noticed in the history of change and these cycles every 8 to 10 years that we've talked about is that something that actually Brandon Turner talks about, which is Brandon Turner, he sold his company for $400 million, and now he's a consultant to Grant Cardone and did a joint venture with Grant Cardone. And now they help. Alexa, stop. That's my 5-minute mark for my next call. But they help people in that business, and being vertically integrated is something that I learned from them is really, really important, being vertically integrated. And it solves the problem of, just in case I'm wrong, I've got these other businesses happening. I've got these other income streams coming into the business by being
like with a contractor, going out buying a car dealership just to buy a couple of trucks might be overkill. Now, on the other end, on the other side of my mouth, I would say, now, let's say there's a deal on a concrete company that is selling. You're in the construction business. You're thinking everybody needs concrete somewhere, sometime. If I buy the concrete company, now I'm more vertically integrated. I've got all this construction, and I can do concrete. I can do concrete for other people. I could do concrete and maybe get a construction gig out of it. So that would make some sense. And part of it really, it has to do with positioning and people believing you know what you're doing. Because if you're in the business of doing construction, then people will believe you with a concrete business. But if you're in the construction business and you buy a car dealership or a grocery store, it's like, what do you know about running a grocery store or a car dealership? You know what I mean?
Do you have to know anything if you're buying an already established business?
Well, you don't, but I think
if you take and here's, I'm not saying now you're running a business per se, but while you're successful, and you look at most of these other multi-billion-dollar companies, while they're successful, while they're on the up, they do buy income. And we're not just talking about real estate. We're talking about other vertically integrated businesses and diversified businesses that they have nothing to do with. They're not running. They may even just sell for parts. But
now this comes back to the fundamental point. You're investing in the management of that company. Because if you don't know anything about restaurants, but you love this restaurant, you want to buy it, you're betting on the manager to run that thing. And the risk is that manager quits. The risk is something happens. You need that person there. Unless you want to learn the restaurant business, I would advocate you want to know something about the business, if you're going to, because, the old saying is you inspect what you expect. You need to have a sense of how this thing works so you can come in and ask good questions. That's why a lot of investors, they have an investment, they have a thesis. I invest in this industry. This is why it's important to know your business so well, because the investors often know more about your industry than you do. And so they want to know what you know. I've sat next to this guy at this conference a couple of weeks ago. He
We,
writes $1 million checks.
we got to have a closing statement so that we can close it up because I got to go to my next meeting. So let's
State
have a
business plan. I don't care where you're on in the path of your business, and I can make that easy for you with business plan, power tools and bizplanbuilder.com.
Awesome. Well, I am so honored, Burke, that you came on to navigating change, and I kind of challenged you a little bit, and you had a comeback for each and every one. I'd love to have you back on the podcast again. And for those of you watching, I want you to pick up our new book, or my new book, called The Buy Income Strategy: Navigating Change for High Net Worth Earners, like the people that Burke helps. So
I'd like to offer your book on my site. It's something people should be aware of. It really is.
please, please, what is that? And we're going to have these books on in our show notes. So what is that book, and where can they get it, Burke?
On the my book, my web address is right there next to my name at the bottom. But
Wonderful.
you're
And
welcome.
you can
You're
get
welcome.
that at businesspowertools.com.
Yep, I can get you an affiliate link if you want to put a link on your website so you can
We'll
send
do
people.
that. We'll do that. So send that, and we'll do that, and we'll put that in the show notes and everything. And thank you so much for joining
I'm
today.
glad we morphed this into an actual
Yeah,
podcast.
we'll do business on other stuff because I'll learn a little bit more about what you're doing, and
Right.
I've got I've got a guy that maybe you can help out. His name is Trey Roth, and his company is Yaystack. And I don't think he has a business plan, and he's trying to raise so much money, and it is ridiculous because he's got a great product.
They
So
bet on the jockey. He needs the business fund really is for you, so you really have
I
to
gotta
go
go.
look the investor in the eye and say, write me a check. Anyway.
All right, we'll talk. Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye.